What I thought I'd do is quickly go through kind of how the Internet Archive has been using Bitcoin and having just a great time with it. But really wanted to end with Jordan, who's running the Internet Credit Union, which is our trade name for the Internet Archive Federal Credit Union. And we started building that a couple years ago, just in case we needed a bank. And I think we've now started to find why we might need one. So I would like to end with enough time to go and see if there's any ideas of what it is we can do collectively. What are some more of the pieces missing to make this ecology actually work? So, okay, so Internet Archive, what are we? We're a nonprofit library. We're based in San Francisco. We've been around since 1996. We started by collecting the World Wide Web. And now we collect a whole pile of other things too, and we give everything away. So I think of ourselves in sort of the company of the Wikipedias, the Electronic Frontier Foundations, the Public Library of Science, sort of these internet-oriented organizations designed specifically for the net. I'll just sort of flip through. We've got a lot of software titles that are available for free. We now have a physical book archive of 600,000 books, trying to get to 10 million. We have moving image collection on the archive.org site that people can go to and download, watch, play with, cut, paste, do whatever they want with. And you can also upload your own. So you can go to archive.org, hit upload, and upload to it. Now you say, well, you know, isn't that what YouTube does? And it's absolutely what YouTube does. But people use us for fairly different sorts of things, usually longer form things, or things in really higher res, or things you want people to be able to download. And it's much more of a sort of a library, if you will. We have audio recordings. We've got 100,000 live concert recordings. We have everything the Grateful Dead ever did, and about 5,000 other bands. We have also net labels and 78 RPM records and lots and lots and lots of audio. Television, we have 2 million hours of television. We started recording television in the year 2000, Russian, Chinese, Japanese, Iraqi, Al Jazeera, BBC, CNN, ABC, Fox. 24 hours a day, DVD quality. And we've made about 4 years of it available, searchable on the internet, of the television news, to try to make everyone into a Jon Stewart research department. So that basically you can go and search what people said and be able to pull out clips. If you want the full thing, you can go and borrow a DVD from us of it. And the whole reason why we're sort of doing this sort of clunky of why borrow a DVD is to basically come up with a respectful way of dealing with the producers and the stations, so that they don't sue us into oblivion. And the idea is, you know, what's the right balance in all of this? So we have electronic books. We basically digitize 1,000 books every day, and we make them freely publicly available for bulk download. There's a Google project that's working with a bunch of libraries, but those are all locked up. So that you can get them onesie-twosie, but even the public domain you can't download in bulk. And then there's the in-copyright materials, which we lend to people, at least during the 20th century materials. We lend one copy at a time to people, and it's all working just fine. So we work with about 500 libraries to do this. And we have lots and lots of web pages. Have people used the Wayback Machine? Do you know what this is? So the Wayback Machine on archive.org, you can go and type in a URL and see the web as it was. And it's getting big. We collect a snapshot of every web page from every website every 2 months, and we have since 1996. So the idea is, like the search engines, they go and crawl the web. We do, and then we capture it, and then we make it into the Wayback Machine. And so this is a free service. Okay, so what did we do with Bitcoin? Well, it seemed like a very internet-oriented thing, and some of the people at the Internet Archive, Gordon Moore and Edward Betts, were sort of doing things on the side with it. And then people started writing us in 2011, said, can we donate Bitcoins to the Internet Archive? Electronic Frontier Foundation and Wikipedia won't allow it. You know, if you allow us to donate Bitcoins, we'll donate. And I used it as a test. So I gave it to our head of administration to try to figure out how to go and accept Bitcoin donations with no programmers, right? She get no programmer help. She has to figure this out. If we can figure that out, then we're on. And she did. She downloaded Bitcoin-QT and ran it for whatever it was, a day and a half back then, and caught up, and we got about $2,000 worth of donations. That was pretty cool. And last year, 2012, did it again, got about 6,000. And so I had gone and tried out the whole Mt. Gox thing and tried to transfer $100, and that was really hard to do. And so it was like, wow, this thing is still really clunky. But it seemed to really change in the beginning part of this year. But we had all of these Bitcoins, and instead of going and just running back to Mt. Gox and turning it in, we said, why don't we go and do something more fun with it? And I asked our CFO, could we go and pay our employees, optionally, however much they wanted, in Bitcoin? He turned kind of white and said no. And then a couple weeks later, he said, okay, I think I figured out how to do it. And so on April 1st, we offered however much people wanted in Bitcoins. And about a third of our headquarters employees said, sure, I'll go and I'll take some Bitcoins, and $100, $200. And so they got these things, and it was, wow, that's cool. Now what do we do with it? And so we made a Bitcoin to cash converter box. This is an honor-based ATM. It's the lowest tech thing you'll ever see, but it's completely fun. It's a little open cash box in front of a computer. And so you go over and you use your QR code or whatever to go and convert back and forth however you want. When I wrote about this and put it on a blog, there was some of the comments back I thought were really interesting. One was like, you're going to be ripped off immediately. And it's like, there was sort of this presumption of no trust, right? Because the Bitcoin has sort of been forged in the land of no trust. And I'm glad that that it's actually works in a land of no trust, but I live in a land of trust. So I said, okay, I'll bet you a nickel, a Bitcoin nickel, that nobody's going to rip it off. He didn't take me up on it. So it's still up and running. And the other thing we did is we got the next door sushi place to take Bitcoins. And so they figured out how to take Bitcoins and posted a little Bitcoin thing. And this was my first bill that I'd ever gotten denominated in Bitcoin. And so I actually eat sushi a lot. And when Kashmir was doing the Forbes Live on Bitcoin for a Week article, it was the only place that sort of natively accepted Bitcoins except for the cupcake place. And this is Kashmir. Me, I was sort of staring over as she took out a very large crowd of people to a Bitcoin meal. There was about 60 of us, sort of that converged, and it was just completely fun. Okay, so the idea here of why, okay, it's kind of fun and games, and actually I think it's the best show in town. We've just been having a blast with it. So that's important, right? You should have your revolutions be fun. But another aspect is to try to find, how do we recast a Bitcoin technology that has been mostly sort of thought about in negative light in terms of what it is you can buy, and how can you go and use it for something kind of more mainstream, and how do we really use it? And for us, it's really mostly a transaction system. It's not a speculation system, at least for me personally and for the organization. It's just trying to make it easier to transact. So when we did a movie at the Internet Archive, the Anonymous documentary, which is a great movie, Brian Knappenberger documentary on Anonymous, we accepted Bitcoins. And it was mostly an education thing, because only, I think, 5 people came and did Bitcoins. But I think it's sort of something that we can do as the Internet Archive, and we can do in more and more of our companies, even if you're not in a Bitcoin dedicated company. Set up a Bitcoin converter box. It's pretty fun. So this is sort of where we'd gotten to, but we'd also been doing something quite a bit earlier. One is to start up, a couple of years ago, we decided to start up a credit union, the Internet Archive Federal Credit Union. And the idea of this is, well, I didn't like banks very much, so why don't we go and do something about it rather than just complain? And thought it would take quite a while to do. And actually, good news is we're really getting there. It's just coming around now, and this is the first time it hasn't even arrived. It's on a little pallet there. So our first Internet Credit Union, which is the trade name for it, now has a an ATM that will arrive in a couple of weeks, and we have now debit cards. And so it's happening. So it's completely fun. And when the bunch of lawsuits, or not lawsuits, I guess the bank closings or the hassles that the exchanges have had that have been going on, we thought, you know, this might be the time that the internet really needs a credit union. And we'll play sort of the role that the Internet Archive has played in other areas by going, you know, embracing BitTorrent for distributing millions of legal things, petabytes of material, Maybe there's something that the Internet Archive can do to help the structural part of the Bitcoin universe. So I would like to introduce Jordan Modell. He'll take over, who's been building this, and you can actually go and sign up. I hope that a few of you do. I hope that a lot of you don't. So it's early, so don't blog about it, please, yet. But if you go to a search on Internet Credit Union or iafcu.org, please try to sign up. You're Jordan.
Yay! So, Brewster's being a little kind. We ended up starting the credit union in part because I had started my career in banking, and for 20 years I had to endure Brewster saying, "Banks suck," and you should just we need to build our own, right? And so one of the interesting little statistics that got us to finally go over the edge and finally say, okay, Brewster, well, let's take a look at this and see if we can build something that's good, was in 2011, if you took a look at the bonuses paid out to the big banks, it was $143 billion in bonuses alone. Not salaries, bonuses. If you took a look at the total indebtedness of all 50 states, it was $130 billion. So you could have paid off the debt of every single state in the United States with just the bonuses. So we decided, okay, let's build something that's fun, let's build something that's useful, and let's build something that doesn't suck. So our first name, actually, we had a naming contest, and what was winning at the time was We Don't Suck. But we talked to the NCUA, who were the regulators, and they said, you really can't use that name. Why don't you try, Internet Credit Union? So the cute little sign, let's see if this works, all right? So I'm seeing if it works. So I don't know, show of hands, how many of you really know? Huh?
I wonder if the audio will.
Let's find if the audio, let's see if the audio works, okay? Quick show of hands, how many people have an account in a credit union, know what a credit union is? See, that's good. All right, we like you. So what made us decide that we did the right thing was when we were doing this, I was giving another speech, and there were a series of wonderful videos on credit unions, except their total was about 16 minutes long. So I called up the CMO of the credit union, which was in Vancouver, and said, hi, I really love your videos. Can you send all of them to me? I'm going to cut them down. I'm not going to give you credit, and I'm going to speak in a conference about it. And they said, sure. And the next day, I had a DVD with all the videos. And I always imagined myself, because I used to work for Citibank, right? Calling up Citibank going, love your commercial. I'd like to take it, cut it, and before you got the end of that sentence, a lawyer would be at your door, right? So let's see if this actually works from an audio perspective. No.
Make a deposit, you're buying a membership. As the board is also made up of members, decisions are based on what's best for the people. Yay! Banks don't have members, they have shareholders. Credit unions are based locally, and therefore can make decisions locally. Like a loan, please? I don't know. Let me just make sure Toronto is okay with that. It would be more like this. Hi, I'd like a loan, please. Okay, I'll help you set it up. Credit unions are rated higher for customer service than any of the big banks. A lot of it has to do with how each financial institution defines service. Credit unions see it as knowing your name and who you are, along with your financial goals. A similar variation in perspective can be noticed with things like community involvement. It's all about people helping people. So, if helping people was a race, credit unions would be way in the lead with nothing holding them back. Banks, well, they'd be a little weighed down. Thanks for watching.
So, everything you ever want to know in a credit union in 57 seconds. So, just quickly about credit unions. Some of the things that people may not know is we're not for profit. Sorry, okay, back here. Okay, we're not for profit. We're viewed favorably by most everybody. But the cool thing about a credit union is it can't be bought or sold. So if you create a good credit union, no one can come in and say, I'm buying your stock and turning you into a bad credit union or an evil credit union. So that's why we can do some of the things that we're doing now and trying to reach out to the Bitcoin community. There are 94 million members, 1 in 3, and about $847 billion in assets. So what was our quick mission, right? We wanted to create an alternative to the big banks. We wanted to create a viable open source model. And we wanted to deliver low-cost financial services to those who need it. Now, I've had funny conversations today with a lot of people. And they say, OK, well, what fees do you want to charge? And say, well, we're trying out for $2 a month or something like that to folks. But the whole goal is to actually get that down. And people sort of look at me and go, well, OK, huh? You're trying to get that? Well, our goal is really not to rip people off, right? Our goal is to support Bitcoin in whatever way we can that we can legally do. Right now, thank you. So, right now we have a really good time with our regulators. The credit unions are pretty interesting. Is that they don't go through the Department of Treasury, right? Technically, the head of the NCUA, that's our regulatory body, reports directly to Obama. Now, I don't think she's ever seen Obama, but there is nothing in between them. So the regulations are slightly looser than some of the other banks are. Plus, we'd like to deal with you, right? We'd like to do what we can as long as we don't get closed down. So what does it take to do a credit union? Well, first you have to exist. It took us 2 years to get our charter, and that, I'm told, was phenomenally fast. So for anybody else who's actually thinking of starting a credit union out here, we're happy to help. I mean, honestly, you can call me. I'll help you with any of the chartering advice, but you better believe it's going to be 2 years plus. And the NCUA is a little scary. If you say, I want to start a Bitcoin credit union, they're a little like the Wall Street movement, the whatever it's called, Occupy Wall Street movement actually tried to start a credit union. And I was sitting with an NCUA official when their application came in, and he burst out laughing. So that's a true story. I won't say who it was, but he burst out laughing. So we're happy to work. It's not something that's an easily accomplished thing. But again, if you want to try, we're happy to work with you. So step 1 is you really have to exist, right? Step 2, you open accounts. So in our case, we have a low-income charter, which is really good because, 1, it allows anybody in the U.S. to make deposits with us, and 2, we actually serve a low-income community. In that case, the person standing there is a Mexican consul general who came to our opening. So we open accounts. So that's step 2. There's 4 easy steps. 3 is we change the world of banking. Well, we're working on that. It's a little slow. We would actually like to partner with you on things like that. But we're trying. And then step 4, you dance. This was also at our opening. So where do you go from here? So as Brewster said, please sign up as individuals. Don't sign up 50,000 people yet. But go online. If you go into iafcu.org, this is a beta site. Brewster's the techie in the family. I'm more the marketing person in the family. So if you like the design, that's me. But I also help put together the whole website. So we take comments and we take them. We're happy to get comments from people. So if you're going through the website and you have suggestions, it's a beta site, right? So we're happy to take any and all of your suggestions. And as a side note, for anybody who's interested, because we are not-for-profit and this is our own pitch for money, we reserve the first 5,000 account numbers, and we take donations if you want an account number. So for example, 1234 is up for donations. Just an FYI. All right. So again, our question to you, as opposed to telling you, is how can we help the Bitcoin movement? Call me, contact me, email me, whatever it is, contact us. That's my personal, that's my business email address. There's our website. And then I think Brewster has one more thing. Did you want to talk about engineers?
Oh, yes. Yeah, we're hiring engineers.
Well, they are.
Yes, the Internet Archive is. So that's our shtick. And I think we've got still 15 minutes to talk. The key thing is, what can we do? What should you do? How do we go and make this whole thing run better? Why don't you stand up?
Well,
Please.
Any questions?
Yes. And does the Bitcoin community need a bank?
Yes. Hell yes.
And maybe you could stand up and say a little bit of how and why and what. And so after the question, yeah.
Yo, Brewster, cool. Yo, Brewster, or was it the other gentleman said, go to the thing and
I'm
sign
Jordan.
up?
Hi.
That's Jordan, I'm Brewster.
One of you said, go there and sign up. So, where's your sign up button?
Right
Join-
on there. Go on the screen and say,
Open an account.
open an account. It's big and bold right there.
Good, I
Tap
didn't
on
see
that
the
open an
word sign
account,
out.
follow
Sorry.
it through,
A little
and I will have
You,
your
you see that? That's the, anyway.
what we need.
You know, UI is really, really hard. Anybody that says, oh, yeah, you just make it look like Amazon, it'll all just work. Yeah, it's really hard.
I know. That's right.
Yay. Credit unions are better than banks in a lot of respects, and banks do suck. So what makes your credit union different and better than other credit unions like TechCU or Silk or something like that?
Okay, if I can answer, we're not. And so that's the wonderful thing about credit unions, right? So there are really three brands of credit unions, right? There are little small credit unions that we're trying to help that are really struggling. There's mid-level credit unions, of which we're hoping to be part of soon, and we share. The furniture in our office was donated by another credit union, right? So we never dish on any other credit union. And then there are some credit unions that are actually bank wannabes, right? Those are the ones you kind of want to stay away from because they're going to treat you the same as a big bank would. In other words, they're happy to take your fees and they'll never give you a loan type of thing, right? But we love other credit unions. And we're not trying to say that we're better than any other credit union. We're just willing to work with you.
Yeah, so an idea on this was to try to start up something. Knew it would take a while. Jordan was available. Let's go and build a piece of potential infrastructure and design it really around the mindset of the internet. So it's the reason why we didn't buy a failing credit union. I guess you don't buy them, but you can kind of take them anyway. If they're going down, then there's ways. We didn't do it, and we didn't buy a bank or a community bank or whatever it was because we wanted to start from scratch, be straightforward with the regulators. We wanted to build something a little bit different, and it took us a while to get here. And with the events in the Bitcoin community, and there sort of felt like a convergence. Right, that it took 2 years of Jordan and several others working really, really hard to get it so we could have an ATM machine that is still on a pallet someplace in a manufacturer. And it took me about 30 minutes to make an ATM machine for Bitcoin. I bought the little cash box and set it up, put the sticker on it. Presto, ATM machine. And it was like, it's been a very interesting kind of world to see these two things in parallel. The more I learn about banks, they just take skim off of lots and lots of things. So can we go and help the Bitcoin community by being something that would be useful in this world? And we don't know. And we don't know enough about the regulatory issues, but if this is at all like what I saw through the whole development of the World Wide Web, which I participated in, or BitTorrent, it takes a while, and the regulators don't know either. And it really helps to have a legitimate player at the table. So it doesn't all seem like Silk Road or, when I talked about Bitcoin to my 18-year-old kid, he said, oh yeah, you can buy weapons. And it's like,
No.
shoot, it's like,
You're missing it.
So the idea of I think we've got a branding problem right now, and I think maybe we have a reality problem. So how do we go and make an efficient system work? I think of Bitcoin as the local currency of the internet. Local currency in the full sense of that kind of, it reinforces a community, it tries to keep the money inside, it sort of really helps something new happen, and the internet is innately distributed, so the idea of a local, anyway, I think it's a cool idea. And so if there's some way that we can use this credit union in that way, I think it might be one of the best things the Internet Archive has ever done.
And just sort of add one more respectful thing to your question is, where we're different but not better is, weirdly enough, we're the first full-service credit union chartered in, and we're a federal charter, so we can operate anywhere, right? But we're in New Jersey in 50 years, 5-0, right? So we come out of the gate full service, and a lot of credit unions, unfortunately, the smaller ones that we're worried about, didn't. So we have ATM cards, right? We have an ATM, we have online banking, we have every CDs and everything else and business accounts, everything else you could possibly want that, but in a less pretty package than Bank of America that you could want. So, sorry.
You're like my hero for so long, Mr. Kahle. It's wonderful to see you. One of the things I've been wondering about Bitcoin banking is, what kind of capital requirements are going to be, like, be able to do loans and stuff like that when everything is based on these keys that are, have you guys thought about like the sort of nuts and bolts
No
of this
idea.
thing? Yeah.
So in terms of loans with Bitcoins, I mean, Jordan's been just trying to build, a basic credit union and get that functioning. And I've been learning a lot about the Bitcoin community by really trying it and trying to get the local merchants on board. And it's been a real struggle to get local merchants on board. So how do we go and have how do we make it easier, I think, is some of what you're seeing here. But this is the most fun. Bitcoin during 2013 is a blast. I remember going in 1991, it was in 1992, I think it was in the same section of the San Jose Convention Center about the internet. And it was the same sort of, the tables looked like they were high school science projects, just like this. And it's just sort of cool to have sort of people with the lights in their eyes saying, I'm not quite sure where it's going, but I want to be a part of it. Let's make something happen together. That one turned out really well. And I think that there's the same kind of energy and dynamic and fun is happening. We should make sure that it stays fun, because that's what's going to get more and interesting people involved in our little field. And so how the Internet Archive can be involved in this, beyond just, making a sushi bar go Bitcoin, don't know.
Okay, cool. I didn't even know you guys were going to be presenting here, and it's awesome. Great presentation. But I guess I know you guys are fans of open source at the Internet Archive, and I'm just wondering, how radically open source is this bank going to be? Like,
Oh, okay. The way this thing works is
online banking. Like, I help contribute to that, or is that something that could ever?
We could definitely use help. Just try our website. Okay. So the way that
unappreciated. Unappreciated. What can I say?
I think it's beautiful.
No tech background. I built the damn website.
Okay. All right. Okay, but what it is in terms of all of the back-end infrastructure, so actually what manages the money and all of the things, is another member-owned community, what is a credit union-owned cooperative,
right,
called CU Answers. So the back end, when you go to the iafcu.org, and you go and say, go to the online banking, it's called 24/7, then you'll basically leave our site to another thing, and that is a back-end infrastructure. And they are nonprofit and community-oriented, but they are not open source. So we are really a kind of a thin facade, technically, on top of those guys. So those guys are the ones that handle all the check cashing, the debit card things, but you've put together all of these organizations, and they're all sort of plugged together. Now, what should we do? We should probably go and start again and make an open source platform, or help out CU Answers and go and make them open source and fix it.
Yeah.
But I think, they're in Minnesota.
They're Michigan, same thing.
Michigan.
But to that end, if you're volunteering, they're semi-open source, meaning that they have to service 200 other credit unions, right? Because basically what happens is people got together, they built a platform, and they said, great, let's distribute. It's the credit union model, right? Let's distribute it among as many people as possible. And they've actually opened up to us, saying that they will take advice from us and maybe even make changes. So if you're volunteering, call me. You've got my information.
Yeah,
right?
Set up an account, try it out, get frustrated, and do what we do. Fix it.
Fix it. Exactly.
Okay, thanks, guys.
We're up for it, right? Yes.
I've got a friend who's a developer and an engineer who's looking for work. What kind of engineers are you hiring?
Okay, so the Internet Archive Federal Credit Union isn't hiring anymore until we can figure out how to get all of the stuff going. But the Internet Archive is, and we're looking for anywhere from people that can run tens of petabytes and tens of gigabits, sort of back-end infrastructure, and also the website, which also needs serious work. So yes, and that's a San Francisco-based place.
This might be a silly question, but the Internet Credit Union, is it a Bitcoin credit union? And like, if I, do I deposit Bitcoins at the credit union?
That is a good question, and no, not yet. If we can figure out, and the reason why Jordan's here from beautiful New Jersey to visit this sort of.
I actually do live in the nice part of the shore.
Is is to figure out how we might be able to work back and forth. And there are some restrictions, though. It looks like the idea of Bitcoins being held by the Internet Credit Union on account for people may not be the easiest thing to get through the NCUA. So having some kind of partnership, so if we could hold money and do the sort of things that banks do sort of now, but work with somebody else, but not to be sneaky, but to just to sort of put together the right pieces in the same sense that we're putting all the right pieces together, we're hoping that that can work. And so we've had some very encouraging conversations with some of the people that are exhibiting here, and we want more. We're basically just trying to figure out how can we be maximally helpful and not turn into a smoking crater.
So I'm just curious, like what is one possibility that you see, like what sort of, what could be enabled by a partnership?
Exchanges that don't get that don't get nuked.
Thanks.
Go.
Yeah.
Ryan, go.
So if you map their insured accounts to Bitcoin exchange accounts, you can have NCUA insurance up to 250 grand on Bitcoin exchange accounts. So now even if the exchange gets shut down, the federal government is on the hook to give the money back to the users. That's
Okay, that's one. There was another idea, which is what happens if you could have a debit card that basically, yes, it pays dollars, but your account, in effect, is denominated in Bitcoin. So you're taking the currency risk, if you will.
I'm sorry.
Oh, that was your idea? So anyway, so maybe it was your idea. So if there's a way of trying to make it so that there's an easier flow, and the transaction costs are really hard. We were just talking with a friend of mine, Mitra Ardron, who's building a distributed micro utility in developing countries. And how do you go and take $2 things from people and not lose all of it through fees? Bitcoin can help.
So there's no and yes. So let's go to your idea, right? So one of the things that was floated out there would be, let's say you want to hold on to your Bitcoins and you want to live your life, right? One of the things that credit unions can do, and actually if you remember from the things for loans, right, is you could in effect take what's known as a shared secured loan. So you put $1,000 in the credit union, right? Sorry, you put some minimal amount, you borrow $1,000 from the credit union, you buy Bitcoins, you leave those Bitcoins wherever they are, right? We loan you that $1,000. And then you live off that $1,000, right, or however much money that is. So in effect, we're not securitizing the thing with Bitcoins, right, but you can use that money that you had and then buy Bitcoins with it. Because once you take a loan from us, that's not our responsibility what you do with the loan. Well, if you're nuking somebody, it is, but if we are doing something illegal.
Anyway, this is some of the
So
ideas. And all of these ideas are, for us, completely new and interesting. And so we're trying to find what's the right thing? What would actually cause it, make it so that, I could use Bitcoins all the time? Yeah.
Say credit unions have the same types of covenants as banks. In other words, you made a loan on, portfolio of Bitcoin that was worth $50,000 a day. Flash crash that's worth $5,000. Do they call it a loan, or as long as you're making the payment, it's fine?
So that's a further discussion, right? There are slightly different covenants for credit unions in general, but the example that I was giving before would be, if you took out an unsecured loan, right? So the unsecured loan was essentially on you, and maybe a Bitcoin exchange secures your loan, right? So that you have the coins with them, right? And they basically act as your loan guarantor, right? And then, therefore, they can do that, and you can get the loan, you can keep the Bitcoins. We don't know yet, right? It's all vague ideas.
And on that note, why don't we give our speakers a round of applause and move on to the last presentation.